Giving is one of the strongest aspects of love. It's not about getting. We're going to talk about that in a moment. It's about giving. Jim Rosemary has a chapter in this book called New Thought for a New Millennium. It's a book that was put out in the year 2000, and it takes the 12 powers, and it had renowned Unity writers write a chapter on each of these 12 powers. And Jim did the one on divine love. And he brought to our attention, most of us are quite familiar with the surveys that were done in the 40s and 50s about children growing up in orphanages, where they were fed and they were clothed, but, you know, that was about it. Not a lot of human contact, certainly not a lot of playtime or physical touch. And how those children, you know, they survived, but you can't really say that all of them thrived. And how they, when they got this idea that, you know, we need to interact with children, we need to play with them, we need to hold them, we need to give them love, that things, you know, changed incredibly. But Jim's taking that a step further. It's very interesting what he says, because he says it's not about getting love. He says a new insight of the third millennium is that our greatest need is not to be loved, but to love. The children in the orphanages were denied love, but more critical was the fact that they were denied the opportunity to express their love. Their bodies may have been small, but they were spiritual beings, made in the image and likeness of love, God. Their nature was love. And their isolation did not allow them to be loving, and this is what stunted their growth. The truth is, we do not need to be loved to survive, to grow, and to thrive. We need to be loving. Love is within us. We are not empty of it when we are born. We are little bundles of love. Life is a joy and wonder when we allow love to escape from within, and it paves the way for what God created us to be. So we're going to be talking about that perhaps a new idea. I mean, when I read that, I thought, oh, I never thought of it that way before. It's about giving love. It's about giving love. It actually takes more work to stop love than to let it just flow out of us. I know that there's lots of places in my life and as I was growing up and in my young life where I blocked off love. That takes work. You know, you build up your defenses and your protection and your separation, and you avoid situations, you avoid people so that you avoid that, you know, expressing that love. It actually takes more work to do that than to just be loving, The natural outflow of love is not work. It's not about trying harder. We don't work love. Love works itself. Just like a magnet. Magnet doesn't try to be magnetic. It just is. We don't need to work love. Love just works itself. We could have, if you picture like love being like a stream or something like that, and you notice, gee, there's not a lot of water getting through the stream. And you see how there's rocks and twigs and dirt and stuff that are maybe kind of blocking some of that water from flowing. And so we think, well, gee, I could try to get more water through there. Maybe if I rearrange the rocks a little differently, you know, I'll get more water. Or maybe if I get a different kind of rock, I'll take this rock out, I'll put this rock in. Then maybe there'll be more water flowing through or more love flowing through. Well, it's not about rearranging our defenses and our protection and our isolation and our separation. It's about taking out one of those rocks so that the love can just flow, so the love can just come out through us. We do not create love. We do not manufacture love. There's only one source of divine love, God. We cannot hoard it. We can't gather it. We can't keep it. We can't store it. Okay? Because it's an energy. It's an energy that needs to come in, it needs to go out. And so when we say, I'm looking for love, what are we saying? We're saying that I don't have love, or I don't have enough love. And can you see by what I'm saying, there is no such thing as not having love, or not even having enough love, because the infinity of God's love lives within us. Right now, we have within us all the love that we are ever going to have. And I remember the first time I heard that, and you can say that about any of those qualities, any of the Christ candles that we're going to be lighting tonight, you have all the faith right now than you are ever going to have. All the love, all the joy, all the wisdom. First time I heard that, I thought, oh no, I'm in big trouble. Because I don't feel like I have a lot of faith or a lot of wisdom, you know. But that's the human response, because when we want to get behind that, the truth is that God's infinite love lives within us. We don't need any more. There can't be more. That God's infinite faith lives within us. We can't get any more. We can't find any more. We can't hang on to what we have. God's wisdom, incredible divine wisdom, lives in its fullness in us already, right now. Don't need to look for it. Don't need to get it. Don't need to find it. Don't need to be afraid about not having enough. What we need to do is access all that we have within us. It's incredible. Do you feel like your bodies are like, wow, how can they hold all this stuff, you know? There's so much that we have access to, and we don't, you know, we just use a little bit of love, a little bit of faith, a little bit of wisdom, you know? There's more, lots more. And love itself, of course, has many appearances, has many qualities. And if you read in 1 Corinthians, you know, love is patient, love is kind, love is generosity, love is compassion, love is thoughtfulness, love is courtesy. Has all these incredible ways of expressing. But, so I was thinking, it's kind of like the white light, you know, as it comes through the prism. If you think of divine love as coming into the prism as the white light, and all the colors that come out the other side are all of those things: patience, generosity, compassion, kindness, all those ways. But you know, when you put all those back together, we cannot create light by putting colors together. And we can't create love by putting all of those qualities of love together. God is the source of that divine love. And it's much more, the sum is much more than the parts. Even if we were just, you know, practicing being patient, kind, loving, generous, there's still more. It's not, you know, it's not the whole picture. There's still more. In Scripture it says, above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. What a great verse. Clothe yourselves in love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And what happens when we clothe ourselves in love? You can imagine how we would see the world, how we would look at situations differently, how we would look at people differently. We would see them with the eyes of God. Our divinity would touch their divinity. We would see the good in situations when we're seeing through the eyes of love. We would look beyond appearances, beyond the humanness. You know, we're all human, and that stuff just gets out there and happens, you know. Divine love surpasses all that, sees right through all that. Our fifth unity principle tells us that we need to practice our beliefs, to walk the talk. And so I'm going to challenge you, of course, with the idea of how you're going to walk your love talk this week and this year. I know when I was a child, I grew up in a neighborhood where we knew everybody in all the blocks, and we played all back and forth at each other's houses. But there was one house that we never really knew who lived there, and as a child, only being out at a certain time of the day and stuff like that, I'm sure the person who lived in that house came and went, but we never knew who it was. It was this big mysterious house. So my girlfriend and I, we used to gather up little bouquets of flowers, and we'd pick things, I remember little violets and dandelions and, lilacs or whatever was out for the season. We put it in a little bouquet and wrap a little bit of aluminum foil around the bottom. And we'd dare each other, and then we'd dash up onto our porch, put the bouquet on the porch, bang, bang, bang on the door, and run away. And then we'd wonder, I wonder if she heard the knock. I wonder if she liked the flowers. I wonder if she saw us running away. We'd be, but we never saw her or him, So we'd wait till our hearts kind of stopped beating, and then we'd go and do our other play. But we did this a lot, a few times a week for sure. That's an expression of love. It was like, we don't know who this person is, but I bet you they like flowers. And what did it take? Nothing. So that it just, if we're open to it and we're secure in our knowing that it's there, then it's easy to give away, because we know there's no end to it. It's not like, well, I might use up all my love today, and then I won't have any for tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. The more we use it, the more comes in. Just keeps working like that. There's so many small things we can do to express love. One of the things that I realized I was doing as I was busily going away around town last week was that I rushed in to buy a tea. And, it's so easy not to even look at the person who serves you, Yep, I want this. I'm looking at the menu. Yeah, I want this, and then she's ringing it up or going, and then I'm looking at my purse for my change, and then I grab it and I'm putting a lid on it, and I say thank you, but I leave, and I thought, I don't even know what that person looked like. I never even made eye contact with them. How long does that take? A moment. 1 second. So that's when I realized I was doing that, so I stopped doing that and made sure that I spent a moment, just looking at the person and saying thank you, for serving me. And you know what? They're astonished. They can't believe it that you looked at them. Because I think they go through a big portion of their days with nobody ever acknowledging that they even exist. And sometimes, you've been in a checkout stand and people are, I think they're trained, to say, how are you? It's like pretty perfunctory, but, you say, how are you? I say, great, how are you? It's like, oh, good, like they never expect anybody to return that. There's little ways that we can just express that love. Talking about making sure that we walk our talk, I don't know where I got this quote, but it just really caught my attention. It says, no man can become a saint in his sleep. It doesn't work when we go through the world with our eyes closed and in a daze and not paying attention to what's going on. We are all saints. We are all expressions of God, but we've got to be awake. We've got to be participating. Okay? Charles Fillmore tells us, he's one of the co-founders of Unity, to look deep into our hearts to feel God there, to persist in thinking loving thoughts and speaking loving words. He says, you are the abode of love. You are filled and thrilled with the mighty and magnetic forces that love uses in doing its work. It's not our work. It's not hard, right? It's already there. Jesus has a different, he has a lot to say actually on love, of course, but one of the things that caught my eye is he said, love is the fulfilling of the law. And I thought, what a thing to say, especially, in his time, because the whole society that he grew up in was based on the 10 Commandments and the law. There was laws, there's laws for when to get up and when to go to sleep and when to shop and when to eat and how to solve disputes with your neighbors and how to distribute your goods, and when all of these things, the whole fabric of society at that time was based on these laws. That you, being a good Jew at that time, you needed to follow every single one of them. And you had scholars interpreting the law so that you make sure that you follow the law. And Jesus says that love is the fulfilling of the law. I thought, what does that mean? He's saying, I'll show you a simpler way. If you do this one thing, if you love, you don't have to figure out if you are within the law. You don't have to remember, I can see why people didn't like what he had to say. You don't have to remember all those laws. You don't have to struggle with them. You don't have to, because if you live love, if love is your law, then everything else will fall into place. The 10 Commandments, you can't live the 10 Commandments and be out of love. You can't be in love and be acting against the 10 Commandments. Just live in love. Love is the new commandment for keeping the old commandments. I'd like to close with a statement from a 17th century Jewish mystic, Rabbi Nachman. He says, let the good in me connect with the good in others until all the world is transformed through the compelling power of love.